Hey guys, welcome
To another video. In this video, we are going to learn about installing Charles Proxy on iOS simulator and iOS device. So we will go step by step. We'll download Charles, we'll install, and then we will add certificates to both devices and simulators. We will build a connection, and then we will check out the features provided by Charles like rewrite, allow list, map local, map remote, throttle, etc. So let's get started. Step 1, we need to go to charlesproxy.com/download/latest release, and in this we need to download the DMG of Charles. So I'll go to Mac OS here and I'll click, and it will start the download in a moment. By default, Charles is a free trial. If you want to purchase a license, then you can. In the free trial, the Charles tool actually runs for 30 minutes and then it closes automatically. For the paid versions, it will run unlimited time. Okay, so the software is downloaded now. So next step is to install the software. Next step is to install Charles. So I'll double click on DMG, and I'll click on agree, and we need to drag this Charles into the application folder, and that's it. Now we can go to Finder, we can unmount this, and we can see that Charles is now present in our application directory. Go ahead and launch Charles. Click on open. And since this is a trial version, it will take like 10 seconds to start up. And then your Charles is up and running. If you want notifications, you can allow. I don't require them right now. Okay. And you can see this is the initial screen of Charles. And we have a lot of settings here which we will make in order to make it working for both the devices and the simulators. So now we will see how we can connect Charles with our iOS device. So on the left side, I have my device casted, and on the right side, we have Charles. So first step, we need to find the local network. So click on help and local IP address. So this is 192.168.1.5, and if you want to see where it has been fetched from, you can go to Wi-Fi settings, and whatever the network, whatever the router you are being connected, click on details and you can find the IP address here as well. Okay, so either you can get the details from here or you can see here as well. So now I have to go to settings in iPhone and make sure that the Wi-Fi is same as of my Mac. Both should be on the same Wi-Fi. Now second step is to click on this Wi-Fi, click on this I button and configure proxy. I'll go to configure proxy and click on manual, and I need to enter the same address 192.168.1.5, and port number is 8888. Why 8888? I'll show you. If you go to proxy and proxy settings, you can see the port is 8888. You can change to another port, but for the time being I'll use 8888. And now when I'll click on save, then my phone is actually connected with this Charles. You might get a dialog of allow and deny as well, so you can allow that. Now I'll go to my browser. So once I started connecting with any calls, it asked me to allow or deny. I'll click on allow, and then I will start my call. So you can see that I'll just clear that with this broom. Okay, and then I'll again make a call of www.google.co.in, and you can see some of the services being called. I can see my complete networking traffic here. Okay, so we are halfway done here. Now we need to decrypt these calls, so I'll use my own application. which I have made a small weather application. It is just, getting the data from an open weather API, and we'll see that. So I'll open my application, weather application, and I'll click on the button. So once I click on the button, so you can see that api.openweathermap.org URL was called, and some API was called. So this is a trial version. It will just, poke you in between to wait for 5 seconds, and then it will continue. And here you can see that I'm not able to get any other details except the request. I can't see what is coming on. Even I can't see the request. I can only see the host and all those stuff. Okay, so this is my host, my URL, and some stuffs from some basic stuffs from HTTPS, and some basic stuff. And these are all the calls which are being made from the browser, or they are being called from the background. I can quit Safari. Okay, now, if I click on my button again, I'll call again this API. If I click on this button, you can see the calls being made. Okay, now very important step, when you are connecting your Charles with your mobile, you need to go to proxy and click on this macOS proxy. This should not be ticked in the case of mobiles. When you are connecting with your actual device, this should not be ticked. Okay, so I'm disabling this, and then I'm again calling this. Okay, I'll just clean it up, open my weather app, call. Okay, and you can also do some sort of improvement where you can go to macOS and enable macOS proxy on launch. You can disable that, because once you launch Charles, by default it is enabled for this particular laptop, but I don't want the proxy for this. I want the proxy for my mobile phone. Okay, so I don't want to enable macOS proxy. So we are halfway done here. Now let us see how we can decrypt this call. Okay, so for this decryption we require a certificate of Charles installed in our mobile phone. Okay, so how we can get that? So you can again tap on help and SSL proxying, and you can see here install Charles root certificate on a mobile device or remote browser. You can click on that, and you can see that there are certain instructions you need to follow. So go to your browser and write this line, chls.pro/ssl. Okay, once you click on this, it'll ask you to install one profile. You'll click on allow, and this is for iPhone, and profile is being downloaded. Okay, so now you can see the profile in the settings. So as soon as you download the profile, it will come here in the profile downloaded section, or you can go to, if you don't find this profile downloaded tab here, you can go to general and VPN. So you can see the download profile here as well. So once you click on this downloaded profile, you need to install this. So I will install this, and then again I need to click on install. So it has been verified now, and you can see the date as well. It is like 1 year from the date. Today is 2 April, and it is valid for an year. Then this is being downloaded, and make sure you are looking at the verified sign. Now we need to trust this particular certificate. So I need to go to general, about, and about I need to go to certificate trust settings, and I need to click on this. I need to just toggle this. So it is saying that enabling this certificate for websites allow third parties to view any private data sent to websites or apps, whatever, right? So yes, we want to enable because we want to monitor our networking traffic. Continue. Done. And now let me head back to my application. So this is my weather application, and I'll click again on weather data. So you can see an API call, but yes, I am still not able to see the data here, right? So now what I need to do, I need to click on this, right click, and click on enable SSL proxy. This can be done in two ways. Either I can click here enable SSL proxying, or I can go to proxy SSL proxy settings, and then I can enable and then add the complete host and port. But rather than this, I can use easily the right click method and enable SSL proxying. And as soon as I click on enable SSL proxying, you can check in the proxying SSL proxying settings that this particular location has been added along with the port. Okay, now let me clean this and let me click this again. So now you can see that I am able to see my complete call. So once I click on the button, it will call the api.openweathermap.org, and I can see the JSON here. You can click on the JSON here and click on contents, and here the above portion is for the response request, and the below portion is for the response. So the JSON text, all the JSON text is coming here, and I'm just displaying this particular field 28.95. So this way we can actually use the SSL proxying settings. Okay, one more thing which I need to tell you is the allow list. So now by default, we need to keep track of the uh, APIs which being called, and we want to allow each and every list. So I'll click on allow list, add star star dot star 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 star, and that's it. Okay, so it means that this Charles is allowing every URL. Okay, so let me click on get rid of the data again and again and again, and you can see a lot of requests being made. And obviously the location is actually static in my application, so the response will also be same every time. However, if I want to modify this, I can modify it within this Charles tool as well, but that is we'll see later in this video, where we are exploring more and more Charles functionalities. So we have covered SSL uh, proxying settings by enabling SSL, and once again when you disable this and once you click that, then you can see that you are not able to see any calls, and we are left with only this unknown option, and you can't see anything, right? You can see that this is completely messed up and we don't understand what is happening here. But again, if I click on enable SSL proxying and click on weather data, you can see one more call is being made, and you can completely see the request response. So like I said, the above portion is request, so you can make it out like what is the overview. Now you can see the request like host, asset type, etc, etc. If this is the query string which is being passed, which is our lat long app IDs and metrics, and this is the complete raw summary. Okay, you can see here, and even if you click on this, and you can use this feature copy curl request. So copy curl request is the same which you can use and paste it in the postman by importing this. So this will be a curl request, and in the postman also you can use that. So it is Charles is able to give us a complete curl request as well. Okay, now similarly for the JSON of response, we can see headers, what is being coming in the headers, what is being coming in the body, JSON text or raw text, whatever, or JavaScript text, hexabar, and the headers. So currently my version is a trial version, but I can make it to the paid version because I have the license key for Charles. So I can register it, and once I click on register, it will show me thank you for registration Charles, and it will again restart. So now after registering, when I click on Charles, it will not take 10 seconds to open it up, and it will open immediately. Let's try using some of the features of Charles. So now when I click on get weather data, I'll see a call here. Okay, I can see the complete call. So what I can do, I can perform a man in the middle attack by using breakpoints or map local or maybe map remote. Okay, so in this case, I'll click on this particular API call here in this particular JSON, and I'll right click on this, and I will click on breakpoints. Okay, so this ensures that the breakpoint mode is on now. This is on now for Charles. So when I click on weather data, it will go to the breakpoint mode where it is asking me to edit the request. So here I can edit the request. I can change the, let's say I can change the what do you say, lat and long, and then I can execute it. Okay, so I've changed it. So you can see now I'm getting minus 0.09 degree, because now in my request, if you see, I have changed the request and my latitude was 28 earlier, but now it is 68. So the temperature is minus 0.09. It is somewhere cold, and I think this is the state, or this is the country which, which we are looking at. But if we don't allow a breakpoint, and I'll just make it simple, then I'll have my own call, which is of my country, India. And I think this was of, I think, Russia. So basically, how breakpoint enables us to modify the request. Now I can also modify the response. So let us again enable the breakpoint and click on the weather data. So I don't want to edit the request. I'll execute this, but yes, I want to edit the response. So I'll click on edit response, JSON text, and then I can make this like 100 degree or anything and execute it. So in my application, you can see the response is being modified. So this is like a MITM where, I am intercepting the call and I am making some changes in the request and response. So this is achieved by breakpoint feature, and this can be achieved by other features as well, like map local and map remote, which we will again see in a moment. So now in order to disable the breakpoint, we'll click on this. So by default it is being ticked for this particular call. I'll disable this, and this particular icon tells us that Charles can be on the breakpoint mode. But if you disable this, then all the breakpoints for all the URLs will be disabled. So suppose you have 5-6 URLs where you have kept the breakpoint and you just want to disable only one, then you have to go to that particular URL and right click and disable the breakpoint there itself. Otherwise, in this case, all the breakpoints will be disabled. Okay. Okay, let us explore the map local feature. Okay, so map local means that whenever this request is being called, then I need to get the data from some local file. So what I'll do, I'll copy this complete response in a text editor, and I'll make this as a mock.json, and I'll keep it on desktop. Use JSON. Okay, now what I'll do, I'll go here, right click, I'll click on map local here for this request. Okay, and you can make specific changes for that. Like for example, I'm making this for this query, or if you want, then you can put a star. That doesn't matter, whatever the query is, I can just make the map local request for this particular host. Okay, so it doesn't matter. I can put a star here, or let us first take the case where for this particular lat and long I want to have some different thing. So I'll again go to map local, and once it has been populated, I'll click on OK. But it is asking me to add a local path. So the local path is the local JSON which I just made. Okay, so I'll go to desktop and mock JSON. Okay, and select, and that's it. So now if I run the application again and click on weather data, so it will give me 100, because this is my mocked mock JSON. So let us change the things in this JSON now. So let us change this temperature to, let's say, 40, and then let me click this. So now you can see that I'm getting 40, because now this particular call is taking the response from a local path, which is mock.json. If I change anything like this and I call this, then you can see that 88888 is there, which is actually invalid. So I am intercepting the call by using a local JSON file. So once this URL gets hit, it checks for that mock.json and it displays the data there itself. Okay. So let us assume that I, make the JSON not readable or make an empty JSON. I can do that as well. And I'll click on that. So in that case, I have just, put an error. Something went wrong when I'm not able to decode the JSON. So yes, the error also, we can also handle or check the base and error cases by using this. I have a series of SSL pinning where we can get rid of this MITM attacks, at least by using the SSL pinning techniques. So I have done both the certificate and public key pinning along with Trustkit as well, using LMOfire and non-LMOfire while using only a URL session. So you can check the complete playlist of SSL pinning series in Swift on my channel. Okay, so this was map local, where you are actually mapping something locally in your machine where the mock.json file is present. So now I can click on map local and I can either disable the map local for this path. So I can go to tools here, map local, and I can disable the map local for this path. Okay, now let us make some JSON. So let us make a fake JSON here. Okay, so I'll go to my mock JSON and I'll copy this JSON here and I'll paste it and save. Before saving I need to make a change, I'm sorry. So I'll again paste it, and let us say that for this particular mock JSON of remote, I'll make the temperature as 15.0. Okay, so I'll save it. So this is my new URL. Okay, so when I'll hit this URL, it will give me the exact same JSON, but the only difference is the temperature is 15 for this remote part. Okay, so now if I again go back to Charles and my device here and I'll click on get weather data, I'll get my actual data, which is the current temperature in my city right now. Okay, but let us now use the map remote functionality. So let's go to tools and go to map remote and enable map remote. And how you will enable it, again you need to enable first, and then you can go here and you can see a map remote here as well. So now in this case I need to have the things here. Okay, so this will be HTTPS and jsonkeeper.com, and path is this. We don't have any query, and okay. So now when I click on get weather data, so it will call the remote, which is my URL, this URL. Okay, so you can see the temperature is 15 here, and in my mobile as well, if you can see the temperature is 15, because every time now whenever I'm making a call, so I'm making a new call now, get weather data, so it will make a call to JSON keeper, and then you'll see that it is coming as 15. Okay, let me disable it for you again just to check. So map remote, let us disable this. Okay, I'll click on that. So you'll see that it's 28.95, which is the actual data. Now I'll go to map remote again. I'll click on this. So this means that whenever this URL is being called, it is actually redirecting to this URL and getting the data from there. Okay, and then I'll click on get weather data and you'll see 15 in a moment. Yes, so we have 15. So this is the way how map remote works. Let us see another feature of Charles, which is block list. Now when I click on this, I'm getting the data, which is fine, and this is not being mocked for anywhere. This is, you can see that map remote is unchecked and we only have a list, but that is unchecked. Even map local is unchecked. I'm not checking it. So let us do this as a, let us make this URL as a block list. So when I click on this, so we have a block list just above allow list. So you can now see in the block list in the tools that this particular URL, the exact this URL with exact these very little query params is blocked. Any other request will be entertained, but if the request come exactly with these query params, this will be blocked. Okay. So what will happen in this case? When I click on weather data, you can see that the call is being blocked, and there is a error coming from the HTTP end that the network connection was lost. Okay. So the call is being blocked here, and again I can go to tools block list, and I can delete this, or I can just uncheck this, and I can make it unblocked. So now it is being unblocked. Okay, this is block list. Let us see another feature, rewrite. So suppose I click on this button again and call the API. Now we can see we have the request and response headers. So these are the request headers and these are the response headers. So suppose I want to modify some value in the header, then how I can do that? So in that case I can use rewrite. So I click on this and I'll click on this and I copy the URL here for the time being. I'll go to proxy, tools, rewrite. First I need to enable rewrite, and then I need to add. So this is a set which you can rename later on. So let's say this is a modify header set. Okay, and in this I am adding my complete URL. So if you're finding difficulty in adding this URL, you can add this in the host, the complete URL, and then click on the protocol. It will automatically segregate the things for you. And okay, so this is my location, and now when I click on the bottom button here, add, it is asking me to rewrite the rule. So what I want to do, I want to rewrite in the response, and I want to modify my header. And what I want to modify, the header value, I want to modify the date value of my header. So suppose my date value is coming as Sunday 2 April, which is current date. I want this to be replaced by, let's say, Thursday or maybe Tuesday 4 April 2023 11:09:54 GMT. Okay, and then I'll click on OK. And you can see the actual request is giving me the response header of today's date. Now when I click on this, and now you can see the response header, the response is good. The response, we didn't change anything about the response, we changed in the header. So now you can see the date is Tuesday 4 April 2023, and the time is again changed. So if you can compare with the older request and the newer, this is the data which is being sent from the rewrite rule. And again you can go back to rewrite rule, and you can perform other rewrite rules as well, like you can do modify header, remove header, host, path, and a lot of things you can do, right? And you can just match with the request or response from wherever you want. For example, if you want to modify header in the request, you can obviously modify the request here. So whatever your application is sending, it won't be sending that now. It can change anything, right? And this Charles is responsible for the change. This is how rewrite rule works. Let us understand throttling. So now in this service, if you can see, I am in a very good network, and when I click on this, immediately it returns me uh, the response. So size is pretty small, 399 bytes, and even the response is pretty small, 469 bytes. And the response time, if you take a look, at the response time, it is also very less. So almost a zero response time second. So if I go to the above request, you can see that request time is of like 3 ms, so it's very fast. Okay, and the size is very small. So let us do one thing. We sometimes need to check application in the poor network. So in that case, Charles will help here. So we'll go to throttle settings here and enable throttling, and for the timing it is being enabled for every host. Okay, and we will keep the throttle to the very bad network, which is our 56 kbps modem. And reliability, you can change it, stability, some of the settings. So for the time being, I'm not disturbing these values. So let us see how the things will change here. Okay, now the throttle is on, and when I click it, so now you can see a little bit of delay. Okay, so now the response time is 424 ms compared to the response time which was almost negligible. Almost negligible here. You can see it's like 0, it's like 3 ms. Okay, so response time, and now it is 424 ms. So this request is taking a little bit of time in poor network. You might not notice a lot of difference in this particular request, but for the long request which is returning like maybe 100 kbs of data, 200 kb of data, or probably 1 mb, then you can find the actual difference there. So again, I'll click on this, and the service is being hit, and yeah, it required 571 ms. So the timing is little, 2 to 3 seconds here. So request started as 4:45:03 and it ended in 4 seconds. Similarly here 4 seconds, but there you can see no difference, just a single second, maximum a single second. So you can see the difference here, and you can see the throttling thing. Okay, we can change the throttling to, let's say, 3G mode. So let us go to throttling settings, and you can see I'm on now 3G mode, and now little bit of improvement you will see. So you can see, like, almost it's again negligible. So it is 8 ms, and it is returning within a second. So this is all about throttling, and you can actually test your application on a very very poor network. So I'll disable this, and then I'll call it on a Wi-Fi, and it is as fast as you can see. So this is throttling. Sometimes in our API we have a caching mechanism. So suppose your API is using a caching mechanism, like from the AWS thing, you are sending the date and all those stuff. Then make sure that in the tools you are not using this. You should uncheck this. You should make it like no caching here. Okay, so this should be disabled. In that case, this should not be enabled, because since your API is using caching, and for this case, every time if you click on this and enable no caching, then so even if your logic is being written to cache, but Charles will obviously make a fresh call every time. So make sure to disable this no caching mode if you want caching to be enabled. Okay, some final tips here in Charles. So we can view the structure in two ways. One is structural, another is sequential. So this is the way we can see the sequential response. So I prefer structure because I can see the response side by side. Now, one more thing regarding this. Suppose you are calling this API, and a lot of APIs have been called. So, and you want to, sometimes it's very difficult to get the view of all the host services of your application. So either you can filter it. For example, I'm filtering open weather, but again, this won't make much sense, because every time you need to filter. In that case, you can do right click and focus. So what will happen, everything will go in other host, and only your applications focused URLs will be on the top. So once I click on clear, so now we have some other host. Once I click on get weather data, they will get to the other host, all the other URLs which are not in focus mode, and I will be only focusing on my applications URLs. This is one thing. Second thing is backing up the Charles data. So for example, you want to transfer this data to some other colleague, or maybe you are on a new machine and you want to get this data. So what you can do, data means like whatever the proxy settings or whatever the map local settings you have done. So in that case, what you can do, you can go to tools and import export settings, and export. You can export this. Okay, and in the export section you can select what records you want to export. So for example, in my case, I am exporting my map local and map remote thing, and let's say I'm choosing everything. So I want to get all the data of my this machine's Charles to some other machine. I want to transfer the data. So I'll click on export, and this is my Charles setting. Okay, this is my XML, and I can save it. And now you can view this XML here. So we have my Charles setting, and you can open it on Xpad or wherever you want, and you can see that everything is being there in the XML file. All the files, all the map local thing. Let me try it out. Map local. So you can see that the local mapping is being there, or map remote. Map remote might be also there. Map remote. I'm not sure. Yeah, this is map remote. So you can see that the API is this, and it has been destined to this JSON keeper, which we just did in the map remote section. So now what you can do, you can go to Charles or whatever the machine the Charles is on, and you can again import the complete data. So you can choose the file, and you can choose your my Charles setting and open. And once you open that, you will be again back with that particular screenshot. The complete data will be present for you, which you have done for the first machine. Okay, so you will be looking at this map remote, map local, everything will be present for you. Now let us see how we can install the certificate in iOS simulator. So for that, I can go to help here in Charles, and first I'll go to settings for the simulator. You can see that in VPN we have nothing, and obviously if I go to general, about certificate settings, I have nothing. Okay, now what I'll do, I'll go to help for Charles, and see we have one option here, install Charles root certificate in iOS simulator. So either you can click on this, or you can save Charles root certificate on your desktop and then drag and drop that certificate here. So let us try with help and SSL proxying and install root certificate in iOS simulator. So once I click on this, the Charles root certificate has been added to your iOS simulators. You can now use Charles SSL proxy from the simulator. Okay, so let us check whether we have got the certificate or not. So again, general settings, about certificate or settings. Yes, we have got that. So now I'll toggle this and make this as the root certificate. And now since we are on simulator, we need to enable the Mac OS proxy because we are using the network of Mac. Okay, so let us see the application in action. So my weather application, and I'll click on weather data. So yes, we can get the call here, and we can do the same. Let's say we are doing a breakpoint here, and let's say, and we'll get a breakpoint. Yeah, we got it. And let us modify the response, this text, and let's say the temperature is not 28 but 128. And yes, you can see the JSON is being modified. So all the other features like map local and map remote and all those stuff which we did with the mobile device actually also works with the simulator as well. So this is how we can do it. Or we can if you are unable to find the certificate, I'll request you to erase all contents and make a fresh simulator. And then if this is also not helping you, the installing Charles root certificate in iOS simulator, you can save the Charles root certificate somewhere in the desktop like this, and then you can wherever this yeah, this is the PEM file, and then you can drag and drop to this simulator, and then possibly your things will start working. Okay, so this is how we do it on a simulator. Also make sure to remove the proxy from your phone when you are done. Otherwise, when your system is off or it is on flap down mode, then your network won't be working for phones. So sometimes it's a pain to understand why my network is not working. but internally I have set a proxy for that. So make sure to keep that as off as well after you're done. That's the end of the video. So in this video we learned about executing Charles in our machine and then connecting Charles with our iOS device and iOS simulators, and then exploring some of the functionalities of Charles which I believe that might be useful for you guys in your iOS development, because network and API calling is a primary thing for every application right now. And you can easily monitor, you can do some contract working. For example, sometimes your backend team is not ready with the API. You can make your complete JSON here, and you can call mock the response here and use the Charles tool as a mocking tool. And also you can mock your own existing APIs to check the behavior of application, whether your application is crashing or not, by modifying your responses, request, and so on. So that's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you found it useful. Thank you so much.